this is where we are right now. And sometimes we find ourselves on that path, even though we didn't want to go there. We didn't really want to feel hopeless and helpless and despairing, but here we are. And it's an easy sort of downward slope, this path, right into the valley. And it's just easier to keep going because, just so many things, one thing after another. To recognize that this is how I'm feeling. Or we can stop. And when we stop, we're still on the path, but at least we're not going down. And that doesn't mean stopping is easy, right? We might need help. We might need to reach out to somebody to say, like, here's the path I'm on. Can you help me stop? Right? Then there are things we can do, right? Thankfulness is a good place to start. Find some things to be thankful for, and then be thankful for them. Be actually thankful. Do something demonstrates thankfulness. Those things, right? So there's various ways of helping yourself to stop, but recognize that it's not easy, right? It's, again, like you're on this path and it's going downwards, and you just step off the path and there's probably a cliff to fall off of because, we're in West Virginia. We know how this path thing works. And right after we stopped, maybe we can even turn around, right? Still on the path, but now we're working our way back uphill. And recognize that if you're on this path, going uphill is work. Going uphill is always work. Right? And that's the way the path goes, right? But hopefully ahead, you can see the sunshine, right? It's sort of dark down there in the valley, but up there, oh yeah, I can see the sunshine up there. Maybe it's worth this work, because let's face it, you don't want to be on this path. And we see this, I think, in a lot of ways in the book of Acts. That's really what the book of Acts is about. The church could have been on that path, and probably a lot of them after Easter were on that path, down into hopelessness and despair. Jesus was gone. Whole movement shot. These goals they had, this thing they were going to accomplish, it's all dead now. Right? And they did some things right from the beginning. Right from the beginning, they stuck together, at least most of them. We don't know about the others, but at least most of them stuck together. And that's a lot. Right? Just like showing up here on a Sunday morning and supporting one another during the week. Right? Praying for one another during the week and calling one another when you get the sense that someone's not doing well, or calling somebody when you're not doing well. These are all things we do together, and we can do so much more together than we can individually. So they got together, even in their sadness and their loss. And they were honest about the reality of the situation. They weren't pretending anything. Jesus is gone. And I don't know where to go. Lost and confused. But they also soon realized that the reality of the situation was really complicated. Because Jesus was gone, and then people told them stories about seeing Jesus again. And then they'd have this meeting and Jesus would appear. Stuff like that didn't happen in the ancient world any more often than it happens today. It's not like, oh yeah, some dead guy shows up, walks through the door. Happens all the time to me too. No, it's just as weird back then as it would be today. So, right? So they were given this resource by God. Right? Don't forget about that. They were given this resource by God of Jesus being there in this new way. And it wasn't like the good old days. It wasn't the same. It wasn't gonna, well, we'll just keep going from here. Because Jesus would appear and then disappear. And then he'd say something and then he was gone again. And then they'd eat and then, who knows where he went after that. right? He would, yeah, it was like, but it was amazing, right? It was an amazing story. And so what the early church started to do is they started to tell the story of the ascension rather than, or at least together with, the story of the cross. Right? They could have stopped the story of the cross, all gone home, back to fishing. Right? But no, right? They told the story of Jesus appearing and Jesus ascending, not to deny the cross, but a way of transforming a hopeless story into a hopeful one. Jesus is still here, and he's gone, and he's still here, and he's gone. Right? But then they ended with, and the Spirit came. So he's sort of still here, and he's gone. Right? So this meant that the story they were telling wasn't just hopeful, it was amazing. Something amazing was happening. Right? And so it's not like, well, things were going okay, and then they all went downhill, and now we're sort of trying to get back to normal. It's like, no, we're going to go way beyond normal. We're going to go up to this new thing where the Spirit is going to guide us into truth and justice and fairness, and we are going to go out there. We're going to spread this gospel. The power of God at work. And it must have also been a lot of work to make that change. Right? The writer of Luke and Acts is just a positive person. He is a hopeful person, and he looks at the world through these rose-colored glasses where he's not going to tell you the story of the work, but it's got to have been work to change from hopelessness and despair to this new energy that the church felt. Right? Because they could have sat around and just told the old story, right? Told the story of the good old days when Jesus was with them. They could have sat around and rehashed those last few days and gone, oh, I should have done this, and I guess I could have done that, and well, I would have done that, but I can do that all day. But they didn't. And the other thing they didn't do is they didn't pretend. That's where the story of the church of Laodicea is important. The church in Laodicea was in pretend world. Oh, we're all fine. Everything's great, right? They were rich and they were wealthy and they were doing fine. Utter illusion. It's all great. No problem here. All right, everybody has all their stuff together. This great facade of prosperity and success. And the writer John says, no, you guys are just fooling yourselves. You're wretched and pitiable and blind. And what Jesus calls them back to is simplicity. Jesus says, I'm just going to come and I'm going to eat with you. We're just going to sit around the table for a while and talk about real things and how things really are. And this is who we are, and this is how we feel. There it is. Right? And on both sides, whether we're on the path of despair or whether we're pretending that everything is okay or whether we're somewhere in between, Jesus stands at the door and knocks. And as the choir sings, just as I am, you are welcome to. No, right? But it's also true, right, that Jesus stands at the door and knocks, and the changes that we need to make in our lives happen because we decide we're going to make them. And we reach out to help, to get help, and we do the work. We open the door. And maybe it's a door you have to open every morning, or, catch on with your Muslim brothers and sisters and do it 5 times a day. You just open up that door and make sure that it's open. Because Jesus is still knocking. And then we do the work. And then we continue with the work that Jesus calls us to. And we do it like the early disciples did together. That's what makes this a church that mostly sort of works. We do it together. Right? And not just us. I mean, we are all part of much larger groups of folks who are trying to work toward this new thing that is coming together. And one of the ways we are together, however imperfectly we do this, is we sing together, and we sing the old stories, right, about the way things should be and the way things could be, and the way things are. Right? We aren't denying the reality of who we are. So I invite you to turn in your hymnals to number 831. We're not going to sing Just As I Am. We're going to sing Blessed Be the Tie That Binds, which is a much more Brethren and Mennonite sort of song. I invite you to